So if you're in ministry, any type of ministry, any position, any church, and we're friends, and I have not talked to you about this book or recommended it to you, I am sorry. I've done you a great disservice. Growing Young is the outcome of a research study that Fuller Seminary did. Fuller's got a long track record of prioritizing and being interested in ministry to the next generation. They did a research study about churches whose average age was staying the same or going down, and they termed those churches Growing Young. And they did this research, and what was fascinating, but not real surprising, fascinating, is that they found 6 traits of every church that they researched that was growing young. Regardless of denomination, regardless of theological perspective, etc., they found basically these 6 traits. And a lot of them make sense. I remember when I was being introduced to the material, warm community was one, prioritizing families and everything was one. These are kind of common sense, right? I expected these. What surprised me a little was one called being the best neighbor. And the reason it surprised me is that we tend to believe in the church in a consumer model of what families are looking for, right? They're looking for good programs for their kids. So if you run a great VBS, if you have a great Sunday school, if you have a great youth group, families will come to your church. That's not entirely false, right? Like if you have nothing for kids, probably people with kids are not going to come to your church, right? But I don't think the consumer model quite factors this piece in of being the best neighbor, and that's why it kind of caught me off guard. The idea of being the best neighbor basically says that the younger generations, right, so millennials and their kids, are looking for a church that cares deeply about its community and the world. And I think especially for those of us who run the circles I do, which are mainly mainline, even if you're conservative in the mainline denominations, you're still mainline. And in our circles, we have a lot of people who come into our churches who have left other churches because of this this issue. We'd have families come to the church I served where they'd say, I grew up in this church and I always knew what that church was against, but I never knew what they were for. And I want to be part of a church that is for something, not just against something. And that's actually, it came up almost word for word like that in the Growing Young book. And that got me thinking about Hurricane Harvey and Irma, right? To be clear, hurricanes are horrible things. I went down to Bay St. Louis, to Burlington, Mississippi, New Orleans right after Katrina. So I've seen, even 9 months later, the massive destruction of hurricanes. Hurricanes are terrible. But whenever an incident like this comes up, it's like a national natural disaster. It gets a lot of publicity. Whether we realize it or not, the next generation is watching. And they're watching to see how our churches are going to respond. So, if you asked me, does our response to Hurricane Irma and Harvey have much to do with our youth ministry? I initially would have said, no, not really. But after reading Growing Young and thinking about it, I actually think it does. I think it has a lot to do with it. And specifically this, in the 10 years that I served in the church that I was in, I was amazed to watch how much more globally aware kids got year after year after year, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. Part of it is just this constant news cycle we're in. Apple News alerts getting pushed to your phone, all this kind of stuff, right? Kids are more globally aware. I saw kids, 14, 15, 16, posting articles about the election this past year, right? They couldn't even vote. And we're posting comments and engaging about the election. That was part of a broader national conversation, of course. But it still stood out to me, right? They're just more aware. And they're more aware of what their church is doing. So in these weeks right after these hurricanes, how you respond, how your church responds, isn't just about doing the right thing and raising money, but it's about sending a signal to young families and to the kids sitting in your youth groups and the kids sitting in your pews that your church wants to be the best neighbor. That this is actually a moment which how you respond will shape the way that generation sees your church. Are you committed to assisting and helping and being the best neighbor, to use Growing Young's phrase? Or is it just an out-of-sight, out-of-mind problem? If you're Presbyterian, I have a really easy plug for you. The thing you read, there's a lot of articles how to actually be helpful. The biggest thing that people say to actually be helpful is to send money, right? They need supplies, yes, but it is a better use of funds to send funds so they can buy them, 90 minutes away than ship them all the way from wherever you are, right? So send money. But you got to be careful who you send money through. We have a great resource in the Presbyterian Church. Presbyterian Disaster Assistance has a great track record of engaging communities, staying there a long time, and actually being helpful in a way that honors the integrity of the community and the homeowners and the people who they help. I know people across the theological spectrum who disagree wildly on the major hot button issues of our days, who both say Presbyterian Disaster Assistance does amazing work. And if nothing else over the next couple weeks, I would encourage you to push Presbyterian Disaster Assistance. Put the information in your bulletin. You can give online. You can give via text. It's very easy to give to PDA. Put it on your Facebook pages, on your websites. Post it. Encourage your people to give, because that's going to communicate to the people in your congregation, look, we really care. We want to be the best neighbors. How you respond, your kids are watching. Your young families are watching, and they want to be a part of a church that is for the community and not just against certain things. So I would encourage you, especially if you're Presbyterian, push PDA, because our kids are watching. Take care and God bless.